All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our second public hearing of 2025 on January 23rd. I will now call this public hearing to order. And note that this meeting is being convened in person and by electronic means, and as such, council may participate in person or online. For those councillors that are participating virtually, please remember to ensure that your video is turned on, particularly for the purposes of quorum tonight, and let the clerk know if you leave the meeting so that we can ensure that we have enough councillors. Councillors are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable your video to confirm quorum. If members attending by electronic means lose connection during any portion of the hearing, we will recess the meeting until your connection is restored. And should council members lose connection during the voting process itself, staff will get you back online quickly and we will suspend the voting process while that happens, and that contact information has been circulated. So for the public, you can view the proceedings online on the live stream and the YouTube link, which is available on X at Van City Clerk. And I would like to start us off in a good way by acknowledging that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and we thank them tremendously for having cared for the land since time immemorial, and look forward to continuing to work together in partnership as we build our great city. Should we have an emergency situation where we might need to evacuate, I would like to direct everybody's attention to the exits. There are two beyond the glass doors in front of me and to the left, and if those exits are obstructed, you can direct your attention to the other 4 exits in the chamber. In such a situation, please use the stairs and not the elevator. And if anybody requires accessibility assistance, our security team will come to you and help you. I also want to highlight that there is a defibrillator located at the end of the hallway outside the council chamber. And finally, I want to take a moment to recognize our fantastic City of Vancouver staff members who work hard every day to make our city a great place to live, work, and play. And with all of that, Clerk, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Sim has a leave of absence for personal reasons. Councillor Kirby-Young is the chair and acting mayor. Councillor Dominato has a leave of absence for personal reasons. Councillor Bly.
It's Councillor Dominato. I am here this evening.
Councillor
That was
Fry.
Can you hear me?
That was Councillor
Sorry.
Dominato.
Oh, and I see Councillor Dominato. Sorry about that, Councillor Dominato. Okay.
No, that's all right.
Councillor Montague.
Present.
Councillor Claassen.
Present.
Councillor Meisner.
Present.
And Councillor Jo.
Present.
The hearing has quorum, acting mayor.
Okay, and it's just for the
Chair, if I can just clarify. So Council Bly is here. I think there was some confusion there with Council Dominato. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm registered as present. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor Bly. We have you. Thank you. Okay. So before we begin, a few announcements. Again, the public can participate by speaking in person, by phone, or submitting written comments to Mayor and Council. All public speakers will have 5 minutes to make your comments. Please focus them on the merits of the report being considered and state whether you are in support or opposed to the recommendations. And if you're a resident of Vancouver, if you're representing 4 or more individuals or groups, you would have 8 minutes to speak, with each individual group needing to be present and confirm their representation. Speakers can only speak once. The proceedings are available on X at Van City Clerk, so you don't miss your turn to speak. And if anybody would like to send in written comments on agenda items, that can be done through our online web feedback form to Mayor and Council. Any speakers who pre-register with presentations are reminded that the public live feed does have a slight delay. So when you want to navigate through your slides, say next, and the clerk can help you with that. And I also want to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to diversity and inclusion, including the utmost respect for all genders. I remind Council that when addressing speakers and staff, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. So a reminder for everyone that Council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means that Council is only to consider the merits of the rezoning application or the heritage designation. Council members can ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or request technical advice from staff, but should save the debate for after the speakers have concluded and closed. After hearing, Council has options in front of them, which include approving the application in principle, refusing the application, Or thirdly, referring the application to staff for further consideration. And lastly, should we not conclude hearing from all speakers tonight, and I think we will recess and reconvene the meeting on January 28th at 3 p.m. Okay. So we'll move on to our first item on the docket tonight, which is the CD1 rezoning for 1434 to 1456 West 8th Avenue. And before we begin, if anybody thinks that they have a conflict of interest, now would be the time to declare it. Okay, seeing none. Clerk, can you please read the application, the summary of correspondence?
This is an application by PCI Developments to rezone 1434 to 1456 West 8th Avenue from C-3A Commercial District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 25-story mixed-use building containing 154 rental units, of which 20% of the residential floor space will be for below-market rental units, with commercial space on the ground floor and second level. A floor space ratio of 8.0 and a height of 77.8 meters or 255 feet, with additional height for rooftop amenity and mechanical appurtenances spaces are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing: 15 pieces of correspondence in support and 5 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you very much. So this is my first call for speakers. Anybody that wishes to speak to the item can call the toll-free number, which is 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445# before close of the list. And that number is also available on X and on the live stream. Will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added at the end of the registered list. And we now have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application, which I'm going to recommend that we see because we do have some registered speakers tonight. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, Acting Mayor and Council. My name is Helen Chan, rezoning planner for this application being considered under the Broadway plan. Nope. Okay. The site shown in red is located on the south side of 8th Avenue on the block east of Granville Street. The neighborhood is undergoing significant change with the future South Granville subway station located across the lane to the southwest of the site. The site is currently occupied by a 2-story commercial building and an empty lot. The property contains 2 rental units with 1 tenancy eligible for protections under the Tenant Relocation and Protection Policy. Sorry. Okay. This area is well served by rapid transit, bike routes, parks, childcare centers, and community centers. Sorry, I'm just... Right. The site is within Tier 1 of a transit-oriented area. However, the Broadway plan allows for more height and density, so the application is being assessed under Broadway plan policies for the Granville-Burrard Slopes Area C sub-area. This sub-area allows for consideration of rezonings for mixed-use rental buildings up to 25 stories with a maximum density of 8 FSR. A minimum of 20% of residential floor area must be at below market rental rates, and the building must have a minimum of 2 levels of job space. This application is for a 25-story mixed-use building with a 2-story podium. 154 rental units are proposed with 20% of residential floor area at below market rents. A height of 255 feet and FSR of 8.0 are proposed. There will be commercial units at ground level and office uses on the 2nd story. A pedestrian mid-block connector is proposed along the east property line in order to allow for connectivity from 8th Avenue through the lane and through to the lane and subway station. Okay. This table shows starting rents as well as the average annual household incomes they serve. Starting rents for the below market rental units are to be discounted at 20% below citywide average market rates. Based on recent data, rents for the below market units would range from $1,200 for a studio unit to $2,400 for a 3-bedroom unit. In comparison, average starting rents for market units on the west side of Vancouver would range from $1,900 for a studio to $4,400 for a 3-bedroom unit. A virtual Q&A period was held from January 10th to January 23rd of last year. 40 pieces of correspondence were received during the application review process. Comments of support were expressed for the proposed height in close proximity to a future subway station. The rental tenure and commercial space were also appreciated by the public. However, the public also expressed concerns about the height and shadow impacts, the bulk of the building, and narrow width of the mid-block connector, and any impacts on views from neighboring properties. In response to public concerns, staff note that the proposed height, massing, and density of the building are consistent with the Broadway plan. The proposed development does not create new shadow impacts on parks and school properties between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. between the spring and fall equinoxes, as is required in the plan. With respect to the public realm, urban design conditions for the application require design development to achieve a safer environment for the mid-block pedestrian pathway, such as by incorporating wayfinding signage, lighting fixtures, and street furniture along the connector. With respect to views, the site is not located in any council-adopted public views. Staff note there is no policy for the protection of private views. The public benefits accruing from this application include the secured market and below market rental housing, which offset any land lift. No community amenity contribution is due. The development cost levies and public art contribution are estimated at over $2.5 million. The applicant is seeking a citywide DCL waiver for the residential floor area, which is valued at $2.9 million. In conclusion, this proposal aligns with the Broadway plan and advances the city's rental housing targets by delivering 154 rental units with 20% of floor area as below market units. Staff recommend approval subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B of the report. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So at this point, the applicant team has an opportunity to provide comments or present if you'd like to do that.
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. We would like to just cede our time and say thank you to Council for entertaining this and for staff's efforts. Apologies.
That's better.
Can you hear me better?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll cede our time. We just wanted to thank Council and staff for their attention to this project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Council, at this stage, do you have any questions for staff or for the applicant team? And I will note for Council as a reminder, this is the only opportunity for Council members to ask questions of the applicant. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to make my second call for speakers who may wish to speak to the item and haven't yet registered to call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445# before the list is closed, and that number is available on social as mentioned. We will now hear from the public and our registered speakers. Our first speaker tonight is Fiona O'Connell, who has signed up to speak in person. And just a reminder that all speakers have 5 minutes to make your comments on the report tonight. And please go ahead when you are ready.
Hi, thanks. Good evening. I'm a proud Fairview resident, and I'm in absolute opposition to the rezoning proposal. This neighborhood already has thousands of affordable homes in place, and the city is proposing to destroy them and replace them with unaffordable towers. It makes no sense to destroy already affordable housing for the monster towers, which will, no matter how much the city continues to say, not be affordable. It does make sense to build along Broadway, as that's where the subway line will be, but the surrounding neighborhoods should remain untouched. This neighborhood is not a downtown, it's not a city center. It's part of Vancouver's rich history, being one of the oldest, with beautiful, already affordable low-rise buildings that complement the natural beauty of the area. It's not a place for luxury towers. These towers will not enhance the aesthetic of the neighborhood and community. They will, in fact, destroy it. Do not scorched earth existing, beautiful, affordable neighborhoods for new developments. Instead, build on undeveloped land or on top of commercial buildings. The video on the city website for this tower doesn't actually show inside the building, which is quite interesting. If it did, it would show that the living spaces in these towers will be significantly smaller than the size of an average one-bedroom apartment in the already affordable housing that the city wants to tear down for the tower, which is an average of 600 square foot for a one-bedroom apartment. The small-scale units in these towers will be about half that size. This is not a livable space. This is not a home. And the proposal states that 20% of the apartments in the tower will be below market value. Below market rent for one bedroom in Vancouver right now is actually approximately $2,400 a month. This is more than double what the already affordable housing that will be torn down in place of these towers will be. My rent's $1,200. I know people who pay just $1,000 and some even less for apartments. So these are already affordable homes that we're talking about destroying. And towers go completely against the concept of providing affordable housing and for Vancouver being the greenest and most beautiful city. These towers will not be for the residents of the community. They will be for the wealthy. They will block natural light, which is so important to all aspects of health and well-being. If you deprive people of space and light, this will add to the mental health crisis as well as adding to the housing crisis. And the city claims there are excellent tenant relocation and protection policies. This is pure fantasy and, quite frankly, insulting. Where will the city put all the thousands of people that will be made homeless when their affordable homes are torn down for luxury towers such as this? It most certainly will not have them in the same neighborhoods. And the tenants who are forced out of these beautiful, affordable homes for the towers are supposedly going to be able to move back into them at below market value. As I've already said, this will still be more than double the rent that they're already paying in their already affordable homes. People live here because they love it, because it's actual community and neighborhood, and because it's already affordable. People with low to middle income, healthcare workers, seniors, people with disabilities and essential healthcare needs. As many people live here because, also many people live here because they have to, and I'm one of those people. And if I can't afford to live here because of losing my affordable housing to these luxury, unaffordable towers, I'm screwed. And there are thousands more who live here just like me. Rezoning projects like this force tenants out of their homes and communities, taking them away from the essential, life-sustaining healthcare that they need to have access to. Something else that needs to be considered is fire safety. I refer you to the Grenfell Tower fire in London, 2017. They do not build towers there anymore since this. This was a 24-story tower. The fire burned for 60 hours. 72 people died, 2 later in hospital, 73 more injured. There have been many similar tragedies throughout the world in such towers. I live in a 3-story low-rise apartment, and we had a fire alarm just before Christmas. Everyone was out of the building within 30 seconds. Think about this. We should be building out and not up. We should be working with other communities and municipalities, putting in proper infrastructure to support this. We should not be destroying existing, already affordable, beautiful neighborhoods. We do not have the space in what is already a dense, very congested area to add towers and the amount of people that will come with them. More people mean more cars and more traffic, compromising ambulance and public access to hospitals. And if we have these towers with mainstream stores, local businesses will suffer. I oppose. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for your comments, right on time. And if I could just ask everybody in the gallery, we try to keep the proceedings very neutral. So if we can just avoid commentary and applause, that would be very much appreciated. Our second registered speaker is Lynn Zawatsky, who's joining us by phone, I believe.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, Lynn. Go ahead when you're ready. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I primarily want to address a couple of important things that I hope will be considered for the upcoming housing projects in the below market residential housing. Well, I live in one currently existing at Road and Lodge located on Dunlevy Avenue, which has a facility on the main floor called Evelyn Saller, which provides services to the homeless. As you probably know, Rodan Lodge offers multi-status housing, so there are babies, children, young adults, elderly, etc. in the building, and it's got 24-hour, around-the-clock staff who are great. But the problem is that once a resident walks outside the front door, it becomes very dangerous and a high-risk environment, as there's so many drug users and drug paraphernalia like blow torches, crack pipes littering the sidewalks, and a lot of garbage daily of food, all kinds of household discarded suitcases, etc. This has increased the rat population surrounding the building and the boulevards. So the residents of Road and Lodge have to walk through secondhand fentanyl, crack, and meth and cigarette smoke. I contacted Health Canada about the health effects of these illicit drugs, as secondhand cigarette smoke is a known Class C carcinogen. However, there's no data on it, on the physical health effects of these illicit drugs. It's not fair that the smoke from these drugs are being used on the sidewalks where children and other residents have to walk through. Also,
Speaker,
yes,
can I ask you to direct your comments specifically to this one project and this particular proposed rental development?
Okay. Well, my point is that the concept is wonderful, but people need to consider that on the sidewalks outside the perimeter of the building, it tends to attract homelessness and drug addicts. I just really would like to request,
Again, if you can sort of just be thoughtful in your comments. I don't think suggesting that rental housing will attract, like market rental housing is going to attract drug addicts is particularly constructive. But if you want to talk about the building and the form and the tenure in the neighborhood, then that's fine. But if we could just avoid disparaging, that would be great.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound negative. I think the problem is that this particular non-market housing building, it's got Evelyn Saller, which provides services for homelessness. And I just have one request. All I wish is that there could be city bylaws for across the board where any drug use, so that, on the sidewalks, no drug use of fentanyl and
Speaker, I'm going
smoking.
If you finish your comments specifically about the rental building, because I think you're veering off into different policy areas, and I'm going to thank you very much for calling in tonight.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to our third speaker, which is Dale McClanahan, also by phone.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
We can. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Yes. I'm speaking in favor of this proposal. I'm a long-term resident of the South Granville area, currently living at 1445 Marpole Avenue, which is approximately 16th in Granville. I was a resident of 1420 West 11th from 1980 to 1982 on the 8th floor of a purpose-built rental building. Today I'm solely representing myself. I have a background in housing development, both for-profit and non-profit. I'd like to comment as follows on this proposal. I think this will provide a healthy mix of secured rental tenure homes, and I note the 20% below market component, which is helpful in providing a good mix in the neighborhood. It's an excellent example of transit-oriented development, and I think makes good utilization of the infrastructure that's currently coming online along the Broadway corridor. I'd note it's a quality design by Muscatel-Mackey, homegrown architectural stalwarts within the city. This will support neighborhood retail amenity, and I looked forward to the local grocery store going into the tower that's currently being completed. And we'll have have groceries in the neighborhood like we did back in the 1980s. I also note that it is in close proximity to recreational amenity. I note it's particularly Granville Island. In terms of trade-offs, I note that 25-story height will affect some neighbors' views. This building will not be in my line of sight, and therefore I'm not affected in that way. But I am acutely aware that future buildings within the Broadway plan, which I support, will impact my ocean views. I accept this impact as a fair trade for more housing in our city and for the opportunities it creates for renters. In closing, I was 24 years old in 1980, and I benefited from rental housing created and enabled by the city, investors, and developers that created 1420 West 11th Avenue. So in closing, I'd like to pay tribute to those that made that housing a reality in the 1960s, and thank you for considering this application, which I hope becomes a reality for renters within this decade. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dale. Thanks for taking the time to share your comments. Okay, I'm going to make that's the end of our registered speakers. I'm going to make my third and final call for speakers on this item. The number is 1-833-353-8610, and the participant code is 1061445#. The number is available on the socials and the live stream as mentioned. If there are any additional speakers in the chamber at this time, you can come forward. And as I am not seeing any at this point, did you sign up to speak to this item or to a different item? Okay, if you want to approach the podium and just state your name and if you're a resident of Vancouver, and then you can go ahead.
My name is Sarah. I'm a resident of Vancouver. I oppose this thing before us. The staff, I guess, is being asked that it should pass. We're recommending that it should pass because it meets, too many notes. It meets the intent of the Broadway plan. I haven't read the Broadway plan. If it's similar to other plans, I'm sure, well, I'm not sure, so I'm kind of questioning, but other plans that were put together 7-8 years ago based on censuses 11 to 12 years ago, like the numbers we're finding out in terms of population growth are a little off. I'm just going to assume this one is in the area of not the villages, what's the other one? Too many notes. Different categorizations, the one that can go to 18 to 25 floors, which we see in front of us here. For rezoning, I'm assuming it's in that category. I just also now want to talk to the applicant because if your property is in that area and that's why the city is proposing this thing here today, you should know that those numbers are based on censuses like 12 years ago. Well, other plans, I will admit I'm a little ignorant to the Broadway plan. I haven't done as much reading. Going to, just in terms of building big, like, this is bigger. I know it's right next to the subway station, the Granville. This is what the province is demanding, and I don't even know what the federal government's demanding in terms of building fast for the crisis right now. In things of that area, 400 meters, I'm going to assume, is up like at least like 12 stories, right? Like that's what we're saying when we're saying we're being rushed by other things, other factors. It's like, no, the provincial government's really on us to like build bigger, quicker. Like they're saying 12, they're not saying 25. So like the fact that you're just cranking it to 11 of the things that the censuses that all this is built on, is not, I don't think, in your favor, applicant, because you weren't here earlier this week, but earlier this week, the BC land assessment people gave their, annual update. And levels of land taxes, you have other taxes, I'm sure you're taking into account, your business people. But the land taxes, for non-market, like it was kind of like for residential things around the same, but for non-market, it went up 43%. Like the others were like at 1. So not that this is much. I mean, it has 20% non-market. I won't even discuss the market. That's unaffordable. I live in a 2-bedroom, 2,400. Very grateful and thankful for that. So let's say, I don't know, I know this isn't how numbers work here, but like your non-market, 20% of which is non-market 2-bedroom is 1980. If you put a 40% tax or just vote 40% on that, again, I don't know how taxes work, it becomes 2,700. So now I can't afford to live in the non-market affordable housing, which is only 20% of what Vancouver City staff is proposing in all of their tower designs for the things that don't fall under villages. I still have time. Yeah, I don't think it's in the best interest of the applicants, of the city, of the staff. I love the European sense. I don't want to start giving my own ideas now too, but I love the Indigenous sense. I just think that we're building cities based on like what Toronto looks like. I lived in Toronto. It's all right. But people move to Vancouver because it's Vancouver. And people move to Vancouver because it's beautiful and it's affordable already. Back to affordability, it's really people who live in cities, they live, not all of them, but a lot of people live in cities because they are accessible. Cities are accessible. My partner doesn't drive. He needs to live in a city. When we decided to move across the country and make a huge decision, our only option was Vancouver. People were like, oh wow, that's really expensive. You sure want to go to Vancouver? It's like, that's our option. And we were able to find affordable housing. And I hope I can find affordable housing in 5 years, 10 years. Tell me the timeline on these plans. That's it.
Great. Thanks very much, Sarah. I'm not seeing any further. I see one more speaker in the chamber, Mr. Bohus. Would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, and I'll be quick. Just want to get my notes.
Are you ready?
Okay. Hi, my name's Stephen Boas. I am a resident of Vancouver. I actually work within the notification area of this rezoning. So I work in Fairview and in South Granville, and I know the area quite well. I agree with all of the comments from the first speaker, so I'm not going to reiterate those. What I want to point out are a couple of things that were lost by staff in the presentation and in the materials. One, there's the obvious thing that there's a 40-story tower that a previous council approved. It's creating a lot of shade in the area. You stack another 25-story tower in the proximity, and you start putting these towers up side by side, you're going to have a very, very dark environment that is going to affect me as well as the residents who live there full time. So the shading is real, and it's made worse by essentially a flawed plan called the Broadway plan that you need to pause. In terms of technical issues, this is a 150-foot frontage, but it is mid-block. You might have a different story if you're on, let's say, a corner lot, but you're trying to put a lot of density in a lot, and it actually doesn't follow your Broadway plan. Where doesn't follow Broadway plan? Well, it's very simple. You have an 80-foot separation, tower separation in the Broadway plan. And in order for you to follow that Broadway plan, you would actually have to have more of a rear yard setback. The laneway there, mid-block, is a little bit narrower. It's 18 feet. And half of that is 9 feet. So you would be expecting another 31 feet of setback to the beginning of the tower. That's not what this applicant is proposing. They have less than 23 feet. So they're asking for a major relaxation there that does not follow the Broadway plan. And this has ripple effects. And the ripple effect is essentially that there is the other side of the street that is on West Broadway. And that's a construction zone. All the buildings have been torn down, including my favorite art store. And if an applicant wants to build there, they're going to actually have to build a very narrow rectangular form on those properties, very close to Broadway, so they can actually make up for that 80-foot tower separation, because this applicant is asking for a relaxation. So if you wanted to do something in terms of your terms and conditions for the CD1 rezoning, would actually be to say you need a 40-foot separation to the middle of the laneway. In other words, 31 feet to the back of the property line, if you want to follow the Broadway plan. This doesn't do that. And the FSR is not guaranteed. You know, I think staff, the Broadway plan makes sure to say that there are certain sites that can't accommodate that full FSR. And if this is one of those, well, it so be. You know, this is a mid-block site. It's a 150-foot frontage. And really, I would urge you to seriously reconsider the Broadway plan. Like, really, you should be looking at a tower of this site height, or maybe 20 stories. Should have been something that goes at, let's say, Granville and West Broadway, not the 40-story tower that got built on top of a very high podium. And so, yeah, thank you for your time and consideration. And really, I would urge you to also look for deeper affordability in the rental units and really do some monitoring in terms of maximum rents.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Thank you for your time. And again, if we can avoid clapping in the chamber, please. Okay, so we're now going to take a 5-minute recess to provide an opportunity for any additional speakers to call in or come forward. And so we will reconvene at 6:43 p.m. Thank you. Okay, everybody, if I can ask counselors to turn your videos back on and we will reconvene. We do have, everybody, if I can just get, okay, we're gonna come back now. We do have some additional speakers now that have signed up. So we have another 4 speakers so far. The first one is Tia Montes. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Do we have Tina?
Hi.
Hi, Tina. You have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you for the opportunity to participate tonight. My name is Pia Montes, and I am an immediate neighbor of this proposed development. My family and I live on West 8th, 1 block to the east of this site. So I think it's fair to say we're amongst the most impacted. I know that immediate neighbors of new developments typically call into these meetings to express concerns, but I am calling to offer my support. I've been living in Fairview for about 3 years now, and I am a new mom. You can hear in the background, and so I spent a lot of time walking around the neighborhood, and I am happy to support plans to bring more retail to our street. A new cafe or small restaurant would be certainly more welcome here. And since our son was born, we're looking to upsize and we're interested in staying in the area. I also work in South Granville, so we're pretty entrenched in this neighborhood. Having moved here only a few years ago, we know that there aren't many newer buildings with modern amenities. So I think these homes will benefit people looking to move in, upsize or downsize. Once again, I support this project, and thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thanks very much, Pia. Appreciate you taking the time to call in. Our next speaker is Eric Freeboth. Eric?
Hello, Counselor.
Yep, please go ahead.
Hello, Counselors. My name is Eric Freeboth. I am a resident of West 8th Avenue, less than 300 meters from the rezoning proposal. I walk by this site regularly, and I've been curious about the plans for this property since the signs went up about a year ago. I'm glad that plans are in motion to build more rental and affordable housing in Vancouver, like what's being proposed here. And as a neighbor, I am happy that the plans for this new building include retail of the ground floor. It would be nice to have more cafes like Wicked Cafe and Monte Picchu down the street from our place. Places like these add charm and character to the neighborhood, and I want to see more of that. This area is going to be much more desirable once the new Broadway subway line is operational, and I am excited to see new restaurants and retail pop up as this neighborhood densifies. Thank you for considering my comments, and I hope you will support the application.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments and your time. Our next speaker is Jackson Spencer.
Hello.
Hi there. You have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Sure.
Hi, I'm also here. My name is Frances Milchmore. I am the former roommate of Jackson Spencer. We were living in one of the buildings that is subject to this application, 1456 West 8th Avenue, and we lost our housing in this building due to this development plan back in December of last year, 2023. The building 1456 is practically empty. It's not a space of many rental units. There were only 2, and we were one of them. The rest of the building was empty. And next door to us, which I believe is also subject to this application, is an empty parking lot. We paid $2,000 in rent, so it was certainly low rent. And we've since been deemed entitled to the tenancy relocation benefits under the Broadway plan, which we do feel are very generous and are taking care of our situation. So I'm going to speak to my support for this application, and I'm going to hand it over to Jackson.
Yeah, so I support the proposal. Like Francis, the city needs more housing built. Clearly there's a housing crisis. And as some other speakers have said, it's important that those sites get built near transit so that we can reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and cars. Of all the places to build, I think on the Broadway plan, this is a clear yes. Like Francis said, the lot that's at 1434, I think, is practically vacant. And now that where the Loblaws is going to go up on the corner of Broadway and Granville, that tower is complete. They're looking to build another tower right next to it. And so of all the places to build, that lot is perfect. So, and the building looks nice too. I mean, kind of standard, but what can you do? Like Francis said, we're appreciative of the protections afforded to us under the Broadway plan, and we look forward to considering our right to move back into the building once it's completed. Unless Francis has anything else to say, I think that's it for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just to remind everybody, we typically have one speaker at a time, but you're both well under time, so that's great. Okay, so seeing no further speakers on this item. We have one in the chamber that would like to speak. We have one person approaching. Okay, can I ask you to state your name and if you're a resident of Vancouver, please? And then you have 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Tian Shuyin. I'm a new resident of Vancouver and also a Master of Community and Regional Planning student at the UBC. So in my opinion, this proposed rezoning is absolutely worth to approve, or I totally support this one, because we noticed that the Metro Vancouver area are facing continuous population growth, and we do need more supply on the rental unit and housing. And in general, the Fairview area or the South Grandview area, the density is quite low compared to downtown and other area. It needs to more intensification and the density need to be increased. And as we review the Broadway plan and TOD plan for Vancouver area, this is a wonderful example how the Broadway plan can be implemented and how the intensification on TOD area can be achieved. It provides a lot of rental units, especially below market rental unit. And we should realize this area or the housing development not only serve the local community, also serve like renters from UBC, like student and staff work at UBC. And we acknowledge the local residents' needs need to be considered because there is a mature community and there have already many years living experience at that area. But the newcomers who come to the city also, their need also need to be considered as a renter. And in general, this area I went to many times. I do like this community, but recently I found this area is vitality and prosperity are facing challenge due to loss of population and commercial activities are shading. So that's the reason I think this one can bring like more people and more development to redevelop this area. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tan. Appreciate it. Appreciate your comments. Okay, seeing no further speakers, I'm now going to close the speakers list for this item. And seeing there are few or no public comments received after 5 o'clock, I'm now going to close receipt of public comments. And at this time, I'll ask the applicant if you have any closing comments.
Again, thank you very much. And no, I have no further comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And staff, any closing comments from your side? Okay, now council has a chance to ask final questions of staff, and we have a couple of councillors, so I'm going to advance Councillor Meisner. You're up.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Kirby-Young. I just want to address a couple points made by the first speaker, if I could ask a few questions of staff. The first speaker mentioned that this development would be, quote, destroying affordable housing. Can I get some information from staff as to which units were on the property? I believe we heard from a few of the callers that were living on this development site, but I want to clarify how many existing rental units were on this property.
Well, thank you. I'll turn the question over to our housing planner, Emil.
Hi there, yes, Emil Norden with the Housing Regulation Team at the city. So existing on the site is a 2-story building with commercial on the ground floor and 2 rental units above. one of which is currently occupied by a former owner, and the other unit, I understand, is vacant. It was formerly lived in by two roommates who have since moved on.
Okay, thanks for that information. So there's 154 total rental units. 20% of those are below market. So this is significant. Am I correct in assuming that this is significantly increasing the number of below market units on the site, given there was
That's
only two
correct.
previous? Okay. Thanks so much for that. And then there was another comment by that first speaker that I just want to address as well. They mentioned that the below market rent would be $2,400 for one bedroom. I don't believe that's accurate. Those rents are set, I believe, in the report. Do you know approximately what that rent would look like for the below market unit for one bedroom?
Yeah, so the below market rents are established at occupancy based on a 20% discount to citywide average rents. Based on
Sorry
data from
to
CMH.
interrupt. Can I get you to speak in a little closer to your mic? It is a bit difficult to hear you. Just want to make sure everybody can
Sorry,
hear.
can you
Thank
hear me now? Speak louder.
That's better. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for the question. So for the below market rental rates, they are established at occupancy of the building, and they're set at a 20% discount from CMHC citywide average rents applicable at that time. Currently, for a one bedroom below market unit, 20% below average rents is approximately $1,429 a month.
Okay, so $1,429 a month, not $2,400. Thanks so much for confirming that. I just think it's really important we get that right information out there. Maybe the speaker might be thinking of a different site, for example, but I'm not aware of any below market rents for one bedroom in Vancouver at $2,400. So I just want to clarify that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Meisner. Councillor Klassen, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks very much. Councillor Meisner asked some of my questions here. So what we heard, I think that there's going to be 154 proposed apartment units for this site. The current site, from what I understand, has 2 apartments on it, and one of them is owner occupied, and the other one, the tenant is subject to the tenant relocation policy. Okay, so that means they can come back at their existing rent as we've sort of laid out in the TRPP. I'm not going to try and repeat all the rules around the TRPP, but there is going to be one eligible tenant presumably there if they take the offer of doing that.
So that we have it on the record, I'm going to ask the housing planner to respond to it.
Okay, sure, you bet.
Yep, thank you for the question. Yes, confirming there's one eligible tenancy which would have the right to return to the building once complete.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that's good to know. So 100, and then I just did quick math here, 20% of the units are going to be below market, which is approximately 30 apartments that will be at below market rents. And also just for our planners, there was an assertion that this was not going to abide our 80-foot tower separation. Can we confirm whether or not this building will be 80 feet apart from the adjacent tower?
I'm Hamid Chayan. Thank you so much for your question. As the staff indicated in the report, the proposal, as you mentioned, doesn't demonstrate that a minimum 80 feet separation has been met from the south property across the lane. So condition 1.3 in rezoning report requires the equal separation from the center of the lane for this proposal. So no extra pressure on the adjacent property.
Okay.
They have to meet the 40 feet separation.
Okay, great. Thanks. Just wanted to get those details sorted out. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor Klassen. I'm going to advance myself with a question. Mine were asked also with respect to clarifying the net gain in new total housing and affordable housing, but there was a comment made by one of the speakers with respect to a setback and saying this didn't meet the setback requirement in the Broadway plan. I think there was mention of 23 feet versus 31 feet. I'm just wondering if we can get some commentary on that from staff, please.
Yes, there's some requirements about setback in Broadway plan, specifically in this area. For front setback, yard setback, and rear setback. From front setback has been considered from the back of the curb just to meet the SRW and all public requirement that's been indicated by engineering. 80 feet setback has been met. And also the rear setback, as I mentioned, to meet 80 feet separation from the adjacent.
Sorry, just to clarify, I'm not asking about separation, I'm asking about setback from the street.
Setback from the street is 80 feet from the back of the curb.
It's 80.
18 feet, yes.
Okay.
5.5 meters from the back of the curb.
Okay, so the comment that we heard from one of the speakers that it was 23 feet is not accurate?
And no, we are reviewing this one to make sure that they're providing 5.5 meter as base, the SRW requirement from the back of the curb, from the edge of to the edge of the podium.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Okay, Clerk, I'll ask at this time, that's the end of council questions. Do we receive any additional public comments since closing those?
Just double checking. No.
Okay, council will now make the decision on the application. Do we have a mover or a seconder? I see Councillor Klassen moving it.
Happy to second.
Thank you, seconded by Councillor Meisner. And any discussion, council? Councillor Klassen, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was just going to, I wanted to just reflect back a few things we have heard. I think it's heartening that the BIA, local BIA, South Granville Business Improvement Area Association sent in. And I think that they sort of see that there will be a net benefit that will arise from having more people in the neighborhood for the shopping district and the high streets there. I know this area and have, or I remember when it used to have the great big Masons building down a couple blocks to the north, and of course the Diane Ferris Gallery. So it has an area that has some history, but it also I think will really gain from new vibrancy and new housing, especially with our Broadway line going to be opening there. But it just so happens, and I just was looking just to confirm it for myself, that right across the street there is a small, quite lovely heritage building. It's about 4 stories high. And it was in I'm dating myself, but I was very young, and we used to gather there for a salon, and I have many lifelong friendships from those days and that particular place. So it'll be interesting to see this street become more, I think, people-oriented and vibrant with the addition of some additional housing.
Great, thank you very much, Councillor Klassen. Okay, we'll now call the vote. And just a reminder for all the councillors participating virtually to please have your video on for the vote. We'll take us to that now.
It's Councillor Joe. Can I have vote assist in favor, please?
Councillor Joe? Yes?
Thank you.
Yeah, vote assist for Councillor Joe. Yeah.
Chair, can I also take a vote assist in favor? It's
Yeah,
Councillor Dominato.
affirmative for Councillor Dominato also, please.
Thank you.
Okay, that. Wait, just 1 second. Okay. Sorry, I'm just, okay, that passes with none in opposition. And that concludes item 1. So thank you, everybody. Okay, that moves us on to item 2 on the docket, which is the CD1 rezoning for 1190 West 10th Avenue. And before we begin this item, I will ask if anybody has a conflict of interest on this item. Councillor Klassen, you're on the queue. I'm assuming that's a holdover. Thank you. Clerk, can you please read the application and correspondence received?
This is an application by JTA Development Consultants to rezone 1190 West 10th Avenue from RM-3 Multiple Dwelling District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 21-story mixed-use building with 172 rental units with 20% of the residential floor area for below-market rental units and a commercial space on the ground floor. A floor space ratio of 6.8 and a height of 66.6 meters, or 218 feet, with additional height for rooftop amenity space are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing: 6 pieces of correspondence in support, 11 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 1 piece of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thanks very much. Okay, I'll now make my first call for speakers. Any speakers wishing to speak to this item can call 1-833-353-8610. The participant code is 1061445#. The phone number is available on X and the live stream. There will be an opportunity for any new and missed speakers to be added at the end of our registered speakers list. We now have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Hi.
Good evening, Acting Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Zoe Acton, and I am the rezoning planner for this application being considered under the Broadway Plan. The site is shown in red and is located on the south side of West 10th Avenue, between Alder and Spruce Streets in the Fairview neighborhood. The surrounding context consists of multifamily dwellings, low-rise apartment buildings, and commercial uses located along Broadway to the north. The neighborhood is undergoing significant change, with the future Oak VJH SkyTrain station located 3 blocks to the east of the site. The site currently consists of a 3-story rental apartment building with 35 rental units. There are tenants on the site who are eligible for tenant protection under the Tenant Relocation and Protection Policy. The area is well served by public transit, bike routes, parks, childcare centers, and community facilities. The site is within Tier 3 of a transit-oriented area. However, the Broadway Plan allows for more height and density, so the application is being assessed under policies for the Fairview South Sub-Area A section of the plan. The plan permits a 20-story market rental apartment building with a minimum of 20% of the residential floor area secured at below market rents with a maximum density of 6.5 FSR. The plan also allows for additional height for rooftop amenities. Minor increases in height and density can be considered for the delivery of ground-level local serving retail or service uses. The plan limits a maximum of 2 towers per block, and this proposal secures 1 of the tower spots. The application for a 21-story mixed-use building with a 4-story podium was submitted in January of 2024. The applicant proposes 172 rental units with 20% of the floor area secured as below-market rental units and a density of 6.8 FSR. The proposed height is 218 feet. 4 ground-level commercial retail units are also proposed, which allows for an additional 0.3 FSR to be considered. The average starting rents for units on the west side of Vancouver are shown on this table, as well as the average annual household incomes that they serve. Starting rents for the below-market units are to be discounted 20% below citywide average market rents. Based on recent data, rents for below-market units would range from $1,200 for a studio unit to $2,400 for a 3-bedroom unit. In comparison, average starting rents for the market units range from $1,900 to $4,400 for studios to 3-bedroom units. A virtual Q&A period was held from April 10th to 23rd of 2024, and 124 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was expressed for the rental and below-market rental tenure, the proximity to transit, the commercial use, and for the height, density, and massing. Concerns were related to neighborhood fit, the height and scale, tenant displacement, as well as parking, traffic, and safety. In response, staff note that the proposed height and density of the building are consistent with the plan. Regarding affordability and tenant displacement, eligible tenants will be offered first right of refusal in the new building at their current rent, or at a 20% discount to citywide average rents, whichever is lower. The below-market rental units will be secured at 20% reduction to CMHC citywide average rents for the life of the building. Lastly, residential and commercial parking will be required to comply with the parking bylaw. The site is well served by public transit and bikeways, and staff expect to see an overall reduction in vehicle trips with the completion of the new Broadway subway line. The proposed transportation demand management plan also includes a variety of sustainable transportation strategies to reduce the demand on vehicle use. The public benefits accruing from this application are the rental and below-market rental units. The DCL and public art contribution are estimated to be approximately $2.2 million. The applicant is seeking a citywide DCL waiver for the residential floor area, which is valued at $2.8 million. The site was not subject to a CAC review as the below-market rental units offset any land lift, and so there is no CAC required. In conclusion, this proposal aligns with the Broadway plan and advances the city's rental housing targets by delivering 172 rental units with 20% of the floor area secured for below-market rental housing. Staff recommend approval, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B of the report. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. So at this time, would the applicant team like to present or provide any comments? Hi, welcome.
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. I think just one additional item that we'd like to just bring up that we take displacement very, very seriously. This tenant relocation plan will have an enhanced component. The owners of this building have a portfolio within Vancouver and within the Broadway plan, and the intent is to guarantee an option within the neighborhood for all tenants in a like-for-like unit that they will qualify for because the landlord will be the same. So I just wanted to mention that we were thinking always of how we can ensure tenant protections, and this is one additional item that we're able to offer for this project. Other than that, no other comments from the applicant team.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Just a sec. I just want to make sure I haven't. I'm just going to ask the clerks. I don't see in the script here the opportunity for council to ask questions. So I just wanted, okay, yeah. So I just want to provide council with the opportunity to ask questions at this point before we move to registered speakers for either staff or the applicant, and reminding that this is the only chance to ask questions of the applicant, if councillors do have them. I'm going to put myself on to ask a question at this point of the applicant, if I can. And thank you for being here tonight. My question is, first of all, how old is this building?
Oh, I'd have to double check for you. I believe it's a 1970s building, but I can double check and get back to you.
And I guess with respect to the fact that it was 3-story, and I understand 31 units were tenanted, and you spoke about supporting the tenants, but how much did this building have life left in it? How much life did it have left in it?
So the building and within the portfolio is maintained, right? But it is sort of looking at major capital upgrades to maintain mechanical systems. The sprinkler system would have to be upgraded, a number of other items, but it's currently in a decent state.
Okay. And then the 31 tenants, you said that you're providing additional tenant support?
Yes.
For them. Can you tell us what that additional support is? What does that entail?
For sure. So the owners of this property have a significant portfolio of rental housing throughout Vancouver and throughout the Broadway plan. And so for interim housing options, they'll be guaranteed a unit like for like within the existing portfolio for interim housing. And so in terms of the displacement, it won't be a change. They'll have the option to return under the same landlord, and they will qualify because they're currently that existing relationship. So it will ensure that folks will be able to relocate within the neighborhood in a like-for-like unit with the same landlord.
So just to follow up on that, they can return not necessarily to the same building, but within the same neighborhood?
So correct. So that's for interim housing. They will still have the right of first refusal to return to the building.
To the existing building. That's what I wanted to clarify. And when you say like for like, so meaning if somebody's in a 1-bedroom, they can have a 1-bedroom. If they're in a 2-bedroom, they would have a 2?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to make my first call for speakers. I think we did that. Okay, so now we're hearing from the public. Sorry, just catching up here because the script was a little off. Okay, so if we have any registered speakers, we'll start with those now. Our first speaker is Andrew Leon, who's here in person? Hi.
Hi. Hi, Sarah. Mike, I met you at the Main Street Fair. Other councilors, Mayor, thank you for being here. Good evening, and I appreciate this opportunity to share my views. Again, my name is Andy Leon. I am a resident within the Broadway plan, and I'm here as a private citizen. I also want to thank you for doing what you do. There's a lot to manage in Vancouver, and I believe many things are going in the right direction. However, I'm here tonight to voice my opposition to the rezoning of 1190, as well as the 1245 to 1265 West 10th Avenue. So I'd like to point out that city councilors are elected at large and do not represent specific neighborhoods. As well, the Broadway plan was not approved by residents by a vote, but rather by a majority of city council and the mayor. I'm asking that you not approve the rezoning permits for both of these development applications. The proposed towers are too out of character to the existing buildings. Plus, 1190 West 10th is proposing retail space on the ground floor. Broadway is the busiest corridor in BC and already has plenty of retail space. There's no need to force commercial space into a residential neighborhood when it already exists 1 block away, as well as 3 blocks onto Granville. However, I am a proponent of adding housing supply in Vancouver, but not in the scope of the Broadway plan. My neighborhood has mostly 3-story walk-ups, with some blocks having 10 to 12-story buildings. From my research, the Fairview neighborhood is already one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Vancouver. I do support 12 to 20-story buildings on Broadway itself, but feel the proposed 21-story developments off Broadway on 1190 and 1245 to 1265 represent the end of what makes these areas desirable. The fact that it is a neighborhood and not a business district. The Broadway plan has been characterized as the second downtown. I chose not to live downtown because I feel it is too congested and overcrowded and didn't offer a pace of life with which I was comfortable. Now you want to bring downtown to Fairview. The very thing that makes this neighborhood attractive is now being jeopardized by these rezoning applications. But I reiterate, I support adding housing supply, but feel the high-rise towers will negatively affect the character of Vancouver. 12 stories at 1190 and 1245 to 1265 West 10th Avenue seems to be a reasonable height and meets the minimum height requirement of a Tier 2 transit-oriented area as outlined in Bill 47. You have a vision for the Broadway plan, which I don't share. I feel it is a mistake to build high-rises off Broadway. It's not too late to reject these permits for 1190 and 1245 to 1265 West 10th Avenue. But why should you listen to me? I rent and live in 600 square feet with my spouse. I'm just one voice. But whose voice are you listening to? Property owners and developers that want their profit margins, as you mentioned to me, Mike, at the Main Street Fair, or actual residents that are passionate about where they live. You could reason that you were elected based on your platforms, ABC, a better city, but I see the Broadway plan as creating a bigger city, not a better city. Thank you for your time, and please reject the rezoning applications for 1190 and 1245 to 1265 West 10th Avenue.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments and taking time tonight. We appreciate it. Our second speaker is Fiona O'Connell, also here in person again.
Hello again, everybody. Everything the first speaker just said, I 1,000% agree with. I'm not against towers. Sorry, I am against towers. I'm not against affordable housing. I'm not against building more homes, but I am against the way the Broadway plan wants to do it. So I'm in absolute opposition to this rezoning proposal. I know the building that's going to be torn down. It's the Beverly. It's a beautiful low-rise apartment building. I know people who live there, and again, they pay way below what the rent will be in these towers for the below market. And I might have got my figures wrong in the first opposition, but it still works out to be at least $500 a month more for these new towers compared to what people pay in the affordable housing they're in right now, which you guys want to tear down to destroy the beautiful city of Vancouver. And also, they will be about half the size of the apartments that people are living in right now. So I want to state that. And also, I'm trying not to repeat what the previous speaker just said. Everything I said in the first opposition, I stand by and I submit for this opposition as well. And also everything that speaker number 1 just said, I add that to my reasons for the opposition. Also, something that is not stated, and it baffles me why not, people don't seem to realize this, with the tenants protection, where are they going to go for these years that these towers are going to be built in place of the beautiful homes that are torn down? No one's stating that. They could go to Timbuktu for all we know. And also, if people can't afford to live in the area...
Speaker, if you step back from the mic a little bit, it'll probably sound more clear.
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear myself. If people move out of the area, if they're forced out of the area, is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, I can't hear at all, sorry. If people are forced out of the area, because there isn't infrastructure out into all of the suburbs, which I'm for, I think we need to build out, not up. Because there's not that infrastructure and public transit, people are going to be driving in. So people might get forced out of these neighborhoods with this tower and other towers like it, but they still have to work in the neighborhoods, especially healthcare workers for the hospitals and the clinics and things here. This is known as the medical mile. So these workers that are going to get forced out, they're going to have to drive in because there isn't transit. And that's going to add to the congestion. That's going to add to the pollution. And worst case scenario, an ambulance gets stuck in traffic and somebody dies. This kind of thing has not been taken into consideration. Let's just see what else I wanted to say. Yeah, the tenant relocation protection policies is just, it's an absolute shambles. I don't think it's going to protect anyone who's forced out because of these towers. Again, going back to the mental health crisis, if people are living in these apartments, which are half the size of what they are in the affordable housing that we have right now, that's going to affect them with the space limitation. The towers are so high. I agree with speaker number 1, 12 floors should be the limit. 20 stories, 25 stories, it's absolutely insane, and it will destroy the aesthetic of these neighborhoods. Like the speaker said before, people live here because they don't want to live downtown. This isn't a second downtown, and it should not be a second downtown. If we wanted to live downtown, we would live downtown. So destroying these old neighborhoods, this scorched earth approach with these towers, which is now unlimited, thanks to the amendment to the Broadway plan, this will absolutely destroy Vancouver. And I still stand by my thing saying it will also destroy trying to achieve affordable housing. These apartments will not be affordable, even the ones below 20% market value. As I said, it's going to be about $500 more than what we're paying already. None of this makes sense. It's destroying Vancouver. Please don't go ahead with this rezoning. 12 stories at best. Protect the people who voted you in. Protect the residents of Vancouver. Protect Vancouver. I oppose this rezoning plan. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Fiona. And again, if we can just keep neutral in the chamber and not applause, boos, any type of commentary, that it would be super helpful. Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Shrishti Pradhan on the phone.
Yes, I'm on the phone.
Okay, please go ahead. You have 5 minutes if you want to identify yourself and if you're a resident of Vancouver.
Hi, my name is Rishi Pradhan. I lived in Fairview neighborhood for 8 years, and I was resident of Vancouver until last year. I'm not right now, but I am still the owner of a condo for Bill in the building where this, just across the building where this rezoning application is being submitted to 1190 West 10th, 1190 West 10th Avenue. And I would like to echo what the previous two speakers said, and I'm in complete opposition of this rezoning application for both 1190 West 10th Avenue and for 1245 West 10th Avenue as well. I lived in Fairview neighborhood for some reason. I don't like living in downtown, and it sounds like that with the rezoning application, the Fairview neighborhood is going to be the next downtown, and I don't think it's good for the neighborhood, and I'm concerned about the beauty of the neighborhood being impacted. Right now, the neighborhood and the area is completely residential, so it gives a very unique essence and a flavor in the neighborhood. People like living there, and I cannot think of this neighborhood being commercial-like, like downtown or the downtown feel. Like the speaker previously said, the neighborhood already has good amount of retail space, restaurants and coffee shops, so it doesn't need more of those. And since my property is right across the building, and the building is planning to be a 21-story building, I'm very concerned about shadowing and the impact of the rezoning that will be on the residents already living there. Since Vancouver is already gloomy during winters, this will add on to more like mental health of the residents there, so because the area is going to be completely dark. And especially from the building, we'll be seeing like 21-story building right now. There's like open sky, there's like pretty building right across the street, but 21-story building, it's going to be too tall, and it's going to completely destroy the essence of the neighborhood. And right now, the neighborhood is a very family-friendly neighborhood. It's a completely safe for young families with young children. I have a 3-year-old child, so I have found the neighborhood being very safe. It has a school nearby. But with this new construction rezoning and with all these like the Broadway, with the 21-story building, I'm concerned that it might jeopardize the safety of the residents living in the area, especially family with young kids. And I recall early in the somebody mentioned that the person who was applied for the rezoning, they mentioned about child care. There's many child care centers in the location, but the fact of the matter is the area has a child care crisis. I applied for child care before, when my daughter was like 3 months old, but even now, like she didn't have any offers from any child care centers in the area. So with the childcare crisis already in there, how are people, these many number of people who will be living in this area, how are they going to find new childcare centers? So I think the new building that is being proposed to be on the 190 West 10th Avenue, it's going to completely destroy the beauty and the heritage of the neighborhood, and I also reconsider, because like if the tenants who are being relocated, would they really want to come back and live in the neighborhood? Because it's going to be a completely different neighborhood, and I feel like it's not going to be safe as it is right now. And I would request the council members to seriously reconsider the application for rezoning, and I would suggest not to approve the application for both 1190 West End Avenue and 1245 West End Avenue.
Great. Thank you very much, Shrishti. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for calling in. Okay, speaker number 4 is David Gibson, also by phone.
Not on the line.
Not on the line. We'll come back to David. Speaker 5 is Bikram Adhikari.
Also not on the line.
Okay. Speaker number 6 is Sue Ben Basie.
Correct.
Thanks. Glad I got that. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes. And if you can identify if you're a resident of Vancouver.
Hi, my name is Sue Fenveshi, and I'm a longtime renter and live on the same block as 1190 West 10th Avenue. I'm opposed to the new proposed tower. This building now houses 31 of my neighbors, and it's always been the best building on the block. It's actually been the best building for miles and miles on 10. It's well-maintained, beautiful building. It's got four of the provincial flower. Sorry, why am I blanking on that right now? And it blooms white. The building is gray, and it's got beautiful red balconies. The rent in there, though I have noticed, is quite a bit higher than most of the rental units in the neighborhood. I'd actually like to address the sizes of the proposed units that are going into this new building. It's going to be 172 units with only 34 below market value. People keep forgetting. I keep saying below market value. 60 will be studios, and they will be under 60 square feet. Only 2 will be over that. So those are going for $1,200, according to whoever was speaking earlier. 51 one-bedrooms under 457 square feet. Only 2 will be over that size, and those are going to be going for $1,400. And then the 41 will be 41 for the 2 bedrooms, and those will be less than 600 square feet. I live in a 750 square feet right now, and I'm not paying anything near those prices. The 20% below market value will be the smallest unit available. Below market value, as stated by the developer, is about $1,400 for a 1-bedroom. But those are going to only be 450 square feet, which is my living room right now. I'm not sure how you're supposed to have 2 people living in 450 square feet. We're not in New York yet. Should we be offering social housing as well in this building? Everyone seems to want more retail. Unfortunately, the retail on Broadway is empty. And we have a lot of coffee shops, and there's a lot of building spaces that are for lease. Will the rents be cheaper on 10? That's what I'd like to know. And none of these new builds are providing parking for most of the units. Parking is already very difficult in the neighborhood. They have plenty of bike stalls, but I bike, and I do not usually bike 6 months a year because it's raining all the time. This building is proposed on a busy bike route, more congestion, more traffic, more accidents. Where are people going to live that will be working at the cafes and retail? And again, I don't want to live downtown. It's reassuring to know that the landlord is making some provisions for, and I believe if it's the same landlord that's there right now, he is making provisions for the new tenants. But there's still going to be an auction on that. I don't believe everyone is going to have first right refusal. And where are they going to live for the 2 years or 3 years before this thing is built? Please reconsider the present application for 1190 West 10th. Thank you, Chair and Council.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking the time to call in. So we did miss 2 speakers have the opportunity to call back in if they'd like to do that. I'm going to make my second call for speakers now. The number once again is 1-833-353-3610, and the participant code is 1061445# before close of the list. The number is on X as mentioned and on the live stream. And I am seeing it looks like we have another speaker in chamber, so if you want to come forward to the podium, you can go ahead. You can please identify yourself and if you're a resident, and then go ahead.
Yes, I'm a resident. My name's Stephen Bohas. I work in Fairview, and I'm a cyclist, and I often cycle in front of this site here on my way to work and back home. And I am concerned about the impacts on the cycling route from construction, also from a lot of more traffic going on the street. So essentially, if you're going to have somewhere between 70 to 86 parking spaces, or whatever the exact number is, you're forcing cars to essentially circle the block. And yesterday I was actually almost hit twice by SUVs doing illegal turns. And they say, well, yeah, the cyclist is going to turn or take evasive maneuvers. Doesn't matter if the cyclist is going on a designated route. It's very dangerous. So you're essentially putting a lot of traffic on the streets, people looking for parking spaces, and there is no parking on the north side of West 10th in that section of West 10th. That's not on both sides there. There are a lot of cumulative impacts in terms of shading and access to sun, and that is really big. And I think a lot of the other speakers before me have covered that. So I'm going to talk about what it means for like replacement of rental units. So if someone is actually living in a one-bedroom unit and has parking space, well, the city, I believe, does a means testing, so they could actually return maybe just to a much smaller unit and lose that parking space. They live in 2 bedrooms, they can go down to 1 bedroom. So the idea of having a like-for-like replacement of units for anyone who wants to return and live and is being displaced, I think that's at least the minimum. Right? There's a lot of hardship, there's a lot of uncertainty there. I know as a renter, I have been evicted unfairly before, and this is a huge problem that's been really fueled by the Broadway plan, which has to be revisited. Otherwise, it's just going to tear up entire communities. There's no rate of change policy there. There's no tracking on what's happening in the Broadway plan, and there really should be by the city. And people sometimes just find out about rezoning when the sign goes up. They're not told by the owners, because I've actually spoken to tenants who have let me know that they only found out when they saw the sign or a couple of days before. In terms of urban design form, and I just want to make sure that I wasn't misquoted for the previous item. When I speak about 80-foot tower separation, you need a rear yard setback here of 40 feet, or actually it's 30 feet and 10 feet to the middle of the laneway, because this is a full-size laneway. And this application is actually doing that because they're giving 30 feet to the rear side, rear setback, whereas the previous one was only 23. It's just for the record, I was misquoted. In terms of issues, I'm really concerned about the business model of this applicant with JTA Development Consultants as having about 15, 16 different applications there. Ownership is a little bit different. And they seem to be especially going after the mature rental buildings there. So potentially hundreds of tenants will be forced to leave because of a Broadway plan that is really being turbocharged by applicants like JTA. This is really the wrong plan. You should pause the plan and really look at affordable rentals. There's actually the other thing I've heard is, well, you've got towers in Fairview. Well, yeah, sure you do, but they might be 2.5 or 3 FSR. You're not seeing 6.5 or 6.8 FSR. And there are a lot of empty storefronts already on Broadway and on Granville. So I'm trying to figure out what benefit would a empty storefront at 10th and Alder have, apart from giving 0.3 plus FSR and additional height lift. And thank you for listening, and please do reconsider the Broadway plan and this application. Thank you.
Microphone. Thanks very much, Stephen. We do now have Speaker 5 who's called back in, Bikram Adhikari. If you're ready, you can go ahead and provide your comments to council.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yes, I'm the resident of a building right across the street of 1190. And ever since the Broadway project has started, I have seen a lot of enthusiasm in the neighborhood for new developments and everything. It's exciting economically, but also, as the previous speakers have said, the commercial units on the Broadway are mostly empty. They don't sustain there at all. And now looking to create more commercial space on a bikeway, it doesn't sound practical to me at all. And yes, I understand the excitement around building big complexes to probably accommodate more people who take the transit. But while living there as a resident, my personal experience has been just as excited the residents are. The rodents in the neighborhood are just as excited too. As a ground floor resident, ever since the Broadway project has started, I've noticed a significant increase in mice and rats activities in the neighborhood. That is one of the concerns for me personally, and I also see that This is also a sign that we are doing development way too fast than the nature can handle. And probably for this reason, we may want to seriously reconsider, like the previous speaker said, building towers on 1190, 1245, and 1265 on the West 10th, which is a bikeway. It isn't practical at all. What I'd suggest is either cut down all three of the proposals or approve only a few or maybe just one. And I think the city needs to be very mindful and thoughtful in processing these applications. Again, like the previous speaker I said, we want to live in Fairview. We don't want to live in downtown, and please prevent Fairview from becoming another downtown and not livable place at all. So again, I'd like to reiterate that these proposals for towers are just impractical, and I think it's a rush proposals to build towers in the prospect of making money, just for lack of a better word, but I don't know what to say, to be honest. Yeah, so let's slow down, guys. Let's slow down. Yes, we want to build faster, bigger cities, but I think we got to slow down. We got to think carefully what we're doing here. Thanks for your time, everyone, and I hope the city makes the best decision for all its residents.
Great. Thanks very much, Bikram. Okay, I'm going to make my third and final call for speakers. Just check with the clerk. We don't have any other speakers on the line at this point. Is that right? Okay, no speakers. So third and final call, and the number is 1-833-353-8610. The participant code is 1061445# before close of the list, which is available on the channels. I am not seeing any additional speakers coming forward in the chamber, so we will take a 5-minute break to... Okay, if you can please identify yourself and...
My name is Sarah, and who does that? I want to know. Is it automatic? Is it AI? And I am from Vancouver. I live here. I just want to first say that I appreciate and agree with all the speakers, and I've been listening to speakers on the Broadway plan. I am specifically talking about this plan as well, though, but for months now, and something that keeps coming up, and it came up today with this plan, so I'll lean on their research, but like that maybe we should just cap at 12, right? Like it keeps coming up. This is in my notes 3 or 4 times, not because it's my ideas or thoughts, although now it is, but because I've heard it from other people here, and I've heard it from people here tonight. And then on that same page where I heard it the first day, I think it was December 11th, I also at the bottom have the words slow, slow, slow written down. Those are my thoughts. And through this whole thing, I have been trying to stay healthy myself. And so I picked a medicine card. Well, I actually didn't pick it. I was trying to pick a medicine card to figure out how to bring medicine to this plan, these towers, the people being moved, just the whole circumstance. And a card flew out. And if you guys read cards, you know you need to read the one that just flies out of the deck. So just a few lines. And it also, I thought to speak to it because someone did mention about how building bigger isn't better. And I don't think building faster is good either. So the card that flew out of the deck, I know you've all been waiting, is the turtle card, turtle medicine. And I'll just read a few lines about turtle medicine if you don't know about turtle medicine.
Sarah, can I ask you just to focus specifically on the application in the building?
It has, the text does have analogies and symbolism that do direct straight to this, I swear.
Okay, if you could laser that in, that would be great.
Yeah, I've already started editing out some lines, so I want to also be transparent, so now you know I've edited, but like you'll get the gist. So Turtle is a fine teacher of the art of grounding. In learning to ground, you are placing focus on your thoughts and actions and slowing to a pace that assures completion. Turtle warns of the dangers of pushing the river, as evidenced by the plodding pace it keeps. The corn that is harvested before its time is not yet full. However, if it is given the chance to develop at its own rate, in its own season, its sweetness will be shared by all. Turtle buries its thoughts like its eggs in the sand and allows the sun to hatch the little ones. This teaches you to develop your ideas before bringing them out in the light. Look at the old fable of the tortoise and the hare and decide for yourself whether or not you would like to align with Turtle. Bigger, stronger, and faster are not always the best ways to get to a goal. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we are now going to take a 5-minute recess to provide a final opportunity for any speakers. We will reconvene at 7:49. Thank you. Okay, everybody, if I can get counselors online to turn your mics back on so we can get quorum and we will continue. Okay, that looks like we have enough. Am I seeing enough or not quite? We need one more. We have quorum? Okay. Okay, great. Clerk, do we have any additional speakers?
Just checking. Yes, there is one caller.
Okay. And do we have a name?
I believe the name is Amy.
Amy? Amy, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, great. You have 5 minutes to speak to
Thank you.
council. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. I have been listening to the proceedings about the development of 1190 West 10th, and I just want to add a comment that I am a resident of the building across from 1190 West 10th Avenue, and I think I want to stress the point that it is a heritage building. It's Bollard Place. It was built in 1907, and I know that the city does not allow redevelopment of heritage buildings, so this building isn't going anywhere. But I'm just sort of stressing the point that a 21-story tower right across the street from the heritage building and on the same block is really not in keeping with the character of the community. That's all my comments are, and I'm strongly opposed to this development, and I would add my voice to all the others who have opposed and have said a 12-story building is, it would be in keeping with the character, not a 21-story.
Great. Thank you very much for taking the time to call in and share your thoughts. We appreciate it. Okay, is that it for callers now? Staff? None on the phone? And I'm not seeing any in person. I am now closing the speakers list. And seeing as there are few or no public comments received after 5 o'clock, I'm also now closing receipt of public comments. And at this point, does the applicant have any closing comments?
Thank you for considering the proposal. No closing comments. Thank you.
Okay. Staff, any closing comments?
Staff have no closing comments.
Okay, council, any final questions for staff at this point? Councillor Klassen, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. There were a few comments about the retail at grade. This is a block off of Broadway, and the Broadway corridor, as we know, is growing and it's densifying, and certainly having rapid transit stations within short walking distance. I think of just sort of. I realize that some people have been asking questions about the typology about having retail on a street like this, but I think of sort of more quaint things like the Mighty Oak, just a couple of blocks over here at 18th and Columbia, where sometimes just having close access to either coffee shop or some other basic services, even a medical office or something adjacent in a neighborhood like this would be something worth considering. And I'm just wanted to kind of get a sense of what our department staff are thinking about with regards to this retail.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor. Chris Ma with the Special Projects Office. So that's kind of exactly it. We're looking at more local serving retail and services in the neighborhoods, and the intention for that is to kind of fill some of the gaps that we have currently. A lot of that retail and services is concentrated on arterials, and this will help us create more walkable neighborhoods where folks are closer in terms of walking distance to their daily needs.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Councillor Klassen. I'm going to take the opportunity to. Oh, actually, we're not there yet. I'm not going to. I'll leave that. Okay. I'm not seeing any other councillors on the queue. So we now have the opportunity to make the decision on the application. Do we have a mover? We have a mover for Councillor Klassen. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Joe. Any discussion from council? Councillor Klassen.
Thanks very much. No, I don't think I was, that might have been a carryover, my name on there, so I'll just take my name off the queue. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Fry?
Yeah, I just want to reflect that I do appreciate the conversation around the tenant relocation and protection policies. This is one of those projects that potentially would really worry me about the displacement. I think we all need to sort of come around to the idea that this density is sort of like now prescribed, and of course landlords or landowners are going to have the right to develop within the available zoning. So, to some of the other earlier arguments here, but what is really, and obviously we're dealing with a project that is displacing existing tenancies, and that is a big concern for me. But I take a great deal of comfort in the language from JTA talking about how these tenant relocation protection policies will be enhanced through the fact that this particular landowner has a similar property that they can relocate folks to. So I realize this is going to be stressful for folks moving and stuff, but I think this really mitigates it and is kind of a reflection of what I've been hoping to see through the TRPP manifesting. So definitely we'll be keeping an eye on this one to see how well it works. And of course, it's always sad to see what looks to be a pretty functional older building that could otherwise have many more years of life left in it to be demolished. But I guess it is what it is in the context of this plan and the subway and the frankly, the imposition of the provincial legislation that comes on us with transit-oriented areas. So, thanks to the speakers who showed up for this.
Thanks, Councillor Fry. I'd like to make comments. I'm going to relinquish the chair to Deputy Mayor Meisner, if I can.
Yes, please go ahead, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate all the speakers that turned out tonight. I know that change is something to adapt to in the neighborhood. As I asked the questions earlier with respects to the existing tenants, and I think one of the things that we have heard from people when there is redevelopment is the importance for folks of staying in their neighborhood where they have, they live, work, and play. They have friendships. They have activities and things that they engage in, and they have that sense of community. And so I was encouraged to hear that the applicant has sufficient buildings to relocate the 31 tenants under the TRPP within their own neighborhood. And then, of course, the Broadway tenant protections, which are very strong, enable people to return to the building at similar rents. And I think that that's really important to note. The other thing is that this is, as we heard, an aging building, roughly in the neighborhood of about 70 years old. I know we want to get as much life out of them as we can. They do start to cost a lot more money. What we're seeing here is 172 units, so about 20% below market is around 34 highly affordable units. And it's a pretty significant difference based on the current numbers of being able to rent for people that need it, a one bedroom for $1,400 versus $2,300, for example, or a two bedroom at $1,969 versus $3,372, which is beyond the means of a lot of people in the city. So I think that when we have to renew the existing buildings and they get to that point in that age, but we are bringing in not only new units, but the units are going to be affordable now, and then the new housing you build becomes the affordable housing of tomorrow. So it is sort of an evolution and trade-off, but I think what's important here is that people are being taken care of along the way, and again, comforted by the fact that people get to stay in their neighborhood. So I appreciate everybody that spoke, and I will take the chair back. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Meisner.
Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no further discussion, will now take us to a vote. Reminder, everybody needs to have their cameras enabled to do that, and we'll go to the voting queue.
And Chair, I need a vote assist in favor, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Joe. Okay, that passes unanimously with none in opposition, and that concludes item 2. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we will now move on to the third and final item on the docket this evening, which is entitled CD1 rezoning for 1245, 1265 West 10th Avenue. And before we begin this item, if any council member has a conflict of interest, now is the time to state that. I am not seeing any, so I'll now ask the clerk to read the application, the summary of correspondence.
This is an application by Stewart Howard Architects Incorporated to rezone 1245 to 1265 West 10th Avenue from RM-3 Residential District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 20-story residential building with 164 rental units, a floor space ratio of 6.5 and a height of 62.1 meters, or 204 feet, with additional height for rooftop amenity space are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing: 3 pieces of correspondence in support, 9 pieces of correspondence in opposition, and 1 piece of correspondence dealing with other aspects of the application. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thanks very much. I will now make my first call for speakers on this item. The number is 1-833-353-8610. The participant code to use is 1061445#. Before close of the speakers list, and that phone number for everybody's awareness is on our socials and the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new and missed speakers to be added at the end of the registered speakers list. And we now have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Hi. Thank you.
There we go. That working? Okay, thank you. My name is Robert White, rezoning planner for this application, which proposes to rezone 1245 to 1265 West 10th Avenue. Oops. The site, shown in red, is located on the north side of 10th Avenue, between Birch and Alder Streets in Fairview. The surrounding context consists primarily of 3 to 4 story residential buildings, with mixed-use residential towers across the lane and commercial buildings along Broadway. The site is currently developed with 3 3-story residential buildings. There are tenants on site eligible for tenant protection under the tenant relocation and protection policy. This area is well served by public transit, bike routes, parks, childcare centers, and community facilities. The site is located between 400 and 800 meters from both the future South Granville Station and the future Oak VGH Station on the Broadway subway, marked with the square T icons on this map. It's also located within the Broadway Plan area, which is the enabling policy for this application. Broadway Plan is a 30-year plan which focuses on opportunities to integrate new housing, jobs, and amenities around the new Broadway subway line. The site is located in the Fairview South Area A sub-area, which allows for consideration of rezonings for 100% rental housing, which includes a minimum of 20% of the residential floor area as below-market rental units. Buildings up to 20 stories and 6.5 FSR can be considered at this location. The application, submitted December 19th, 2023, proposes to rezone the site from RM3 to CD1 to permit the development of a 20-story rental tower with rooftop amenity area. 164 rental units are proposed, with 20% of the residential floor area as below-market rental units, or approximately 33 units. A density of 6.5 FSR and a height of 204 feet are proposed. The average starting rents are shown on this table, as well as the average annual household incomes they serve. Starting rents for the below-market rental units are to be discounted 20% below citywide average market rents. Based on recent data, rents for below-market units would range from about $1,200 for a studio up to $2,400 for a 3-bedroom unit. In comparison, average starting rents for market units on the west side range from about $1,900 to $4,400. A virtual Q&A period was held from March 20th to April 2nd last year, and 95 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was expressed for the rental and below-market rental tenures, the density, and the proximity to rapid transit. Concerns were related to height and height and neighborhood fit, tenant displacement and affordability, and traffic and safety. In response to the public feedback regarding height and neighborhood fit, staff note the proposal is consistent with the Broadway plan to create new rental housing in residential areas close to transit, and the proposed building meets the built form expectations of the plan. Regarding tenant displacement and affordability, eligible tenants will be offered first right of refusal in the new building at their current rent or at a 20% discount to citywide average rents, whichever is lower. The below-market rental units will be secured at a 20% reduction to CMHC citywide average rents for the life of the building. Regarding traffic and safety, the proposal will be required to comply with the parking bylaw and submit a TDM plan at the time of development permit. Transportation conditions have been included in Appendix B to improve traffic and safety. The public benefits resulting from this application are the market and below-market rental units. A development cost levy and public art contribution are estimated to be approximately $2 million as shown here. As well, the applicant is seeking a citywide development cost levy waiver for the residential floor area, which is valued at $2.9 million. The site was not subject to a CAC review, as the below-market rental units offset any land lift. In conclusion, this proposal aligns with the Broadway plan and advances the city's rental housing targets by delivering 164 rental units, with 20% of the residential floor area as below-market rental units. Staff recommend approval of this application subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B of the report, and staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that from our staff team. Would the applicant team like to present anything? And I see the answer is yes.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Council. My name is Neil Robertson. I'm one of the principals of Stuart Howard Architects and the applicant for this application. I'll be brief because I think the staff did an excellent job describing our project. We do a lot of rental projects in the city, and what we found when you're doing a rental project, to get a successful project, is critical that you have a practical and constructible building. And that's sort of been our approach to a lot of these projects. First and foremost, these projects have to be able to get financing because our clients are beholden to lenders to be able to make these things actually pencil and work. So when we lay out these buildings, we lay them out in a way that we know that they're practical and constructible and financeable. But at the same time, we want to elevate these projects. We don't want to create humdrum rental projects, sort of a dour Soviet bloc kind of approach to buildings. So what we choose to do in these projects, although practically in their layout and their massing, formally they're quite sober, but the way that we elevate them is by playing around with the edges and articulating the edges and adding a sense of whimsy and fun to these projects. And I think that's what you see expressed in this project. We always work hard on the edges of these projects to make sure that they're articulated and to create visual interest through color, form, and rhythm and movement. And that, I think, is that project, or this project in a nutshell. I don't want to wax on poetic too long with these projects because I know you guys all have busy nights ahead of you with all these Broadway plan projects, so I'll leave it there. But also, we are available to answer any questions that council may have on this project, and the owner of the developer of this project is also able to answer questions should you have any as well. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thanks very much, Neil. At this point, are there any questions from council to staff or the applicant team? And I will note this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to make my second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for the item, the number to call is 1-833-353-8610, followed by the participant code 1061445# before close of the list. And that number is available on the live stream and on socials. We will now move on to hearing from the public. Any registered speakers in the council chamber can come forward when your name is called. Speaker number 1 has withdrawn. I will note that speakers have 5 minutes to make your comments. Please focus them on the specific application being considered. And our first speaker tonight is Fiona O'Connell in person.
Hello again, everybody. You know my stance on this. I'm in complete opposition to it. I don't want to repeat myself, but I'll just read what I've got rather than mumble and stumble. This neighborhood already has thousands of affordable homes in place. The city is proposing to destroy them and replace them with unaffordable towers. The below market rent will still be unaffordable compared to what people are paying right now. As I said, I know people who pay less than $1,000 a month, and my rent is $1,200. So regardless, the below market rent will still be unaffordable at about $500 a month more than what people are paying now. Another thing to talk about is the actual design of the building. I'm opposed to the height, absolutely. This particular building, the design is hideous. It looks like a child's Lego toy, and it absolutely will not be in keeping with the neighborhood. My parents visited here in 2013, and they came again in 2022, and there's a number of buildings like this that have been constructed in that time. They were horrified by how Vancouver looks now, and they said it looks like an absolute joke, and it was heartbreaking. Okay, so as I said, it makes sense to build along Broadway. That's where the train line will be, but the surrounding neighborhoods should not be encroached on, especially with these towers. As I said before, these neighborhoods, it's not a downtown, it's not a city center. It's part of the old neighborhoods and Vancouver's rich history. It already has affordable, low-rise buildings, which are a decent, livable size. Again, the video for this tower doesn't show inside the building, which is very interesting. As I said, if it did, it would show how small these living spaces are. I heard someone earlier talk about studios being around 200 square feet. Pretty sure a jail cell will be about that size. That's not a livable space, and that will have a massive impact on people's mental health. As I said, if you have tall towers and little shoebox apartments, you're depriving light and space, which should be a human right. If people don't have that, they will have a mental health crisis. Another thing I wanted to talk about was where is the social housing in these projects? I think there were some along in the Broadway plan in other locations that were going to include social housing, but these three ones have not. And it's supposed to be in keeping with the diversity of the neighborhood, and it's not. It is not representing people who are on the lower income side. And something I was wondering is, do we all have to apply for social housing? Do we have to join the registry so we don't have to have the fear of being made homeless with the construction of these towers? Because that seems to be, that might be one of the safe options to make sure that we don't get forced out of the area. Another thing is, as I spoke in my first speech, there are people who live here not only because they love it, but because they have to, and I'm one of them. I don't know if you can see, I've got a walker. I have to have a lot of health appointments. There's so many people that live in the area because of that, so they can access the hospital and the clinics, and they have to be here. They don't have a choice, and it's not a nice choice to have to leave either, but we don't have a choice. If we're not here, we don't get that life-sustaining care. So do I have to live on the streets to stay in the neighborhood to access the care that I need to exist? Another thing that I was wanting to talk about is regarding the like for like. So if tenants are able to move back in, it won't be like for like. As I said before, the apartments are going to be about half the size. So we're actually being asked to pay more money for less living space. So that's not affordable housing. Another thing I wanted to go to quickly was about the fire hazards. The Grenfell Tower fire in London in 2017. 72 people died. The fire burned for 60 hours. 2 more people died later in hospital. 73 people, in addition to this, were injured. And there's been many similar tragedies throughout the world in these similar towers. The low-rise apartment buildings are much safer. I live in a 3-rise one. We had a fire drill before Christmas, and everybody was out of the building within 30 seconds. So I oppose this. Please don't destroy Vancouver. It's amazing. Keep it that way.
Thank you, Fiona. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for speaking. Our third registered speaker is Eden Loomis, also in person. Yep, there you are.
Hello, thank you.
Please go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Eden, and I'm a tenant and resident of 1245 West 10th Avenue, one of the sites up for rezoning today. And I would like to express my opposition to the rezoning of 1245 to 1265 West 10th Avenue from RM3 to CD1 for 3 key reasons. 1, it displaces me, my neighbors, and my community, and I am not eligible for any of the tenant relocations or protections. Unfortunately, my landlord made sure of that. 2, it does more to destroy current affordable housing than to create real affordable housing. And 3, it is not in line with the unique character and history of this neighborhood. I moved to Fairview in 2021. Housing was particularly difficult to find in the city at that time, but Fairview was more affordable and there were more apartments available than in the surrounding Mount Pleasant, Kitsilano, Grandview Woodland neighborhoods, while still being centrally located for my work and school. It was a blessing of a neighborhood to be in. After a few years, however, our landlord illegally rent-evicted us. They had been waiting for the Broadway plan to be finalized and realizing that they were just outside of the new densification plans, decided to evict us to renovate and charge higher rents as the Broadway plan gentrified the neighborhood. I was searching desperately for housing, viewing much smaller and more expensive apartments and hearing nothing back. By a miracle, I found my current apartment in 1245 West 10th Avenue, 4 days before I had to move out. I was so relieved that my housing nightmares were over, only to discover, not after even a month of living in my new apartment, that this building too was to be sold and rezoned. Being a renter in Vancouver, and particularly in Fairview in the last 5 years, has felt like being chased from one rezoned building to the next. Rezoning these apartments displaces me and my fellow tenants once again. However, I wouldn't be so frustrated about being displaced if I felt it was truly with the goal of making housing more affordable. I know that densification should, in theory, lead to more affordable housing, but this does not seem to be what is happening in Fairview. Not only does this rezoning facilitate the destruction of already existing, perfectly delightful and livable housing in the midst of a housing crisis, but the new supposedly affordable and denser units are not as affordable as my current rent. How come I'm being displaced in the name of affordable housing when the new units will be less affordable and smaller than my current unit? I'm a university graduate with a master's degree, working full-time in my field, and nearly 50% of my earnings already go towards housing costs. By rezoning this neighborhood, the city is destroying the few remaining pockets of affordable apartments in Vancouver, and me and other young professionals will have to move elsewhere. Finally, I'm opposed to this rezoning proposal because the proposed building is not in line with the character and aesthetics of the neighborhood and destroys historical and character apartments that make Fairview unique. Fairview is characterized by diverse and colorful apartments from many decades in the 20th century and is already comparatively much denser than the surrounding neighborhoods like Mount Pleasant or the neighboring mansions of Shaughnessy. These buildings are unique and of their time. My apartment has real hardwood floor, unique and colorful tiling, and character touches that are from a specific and irreplicable time in Vancouver's architectural history. Though my building does not have a heritage designation, by rezoning apartments of this era, we are not even allowing these buildings to age into heritage designations in their own right. The proposed new building is not in line with the character of the neighborhood, as others have pointed out. It looks out of place, and personally, I find the building ugly, uninspiring, and that it does not have unique features. It looks like every other glass and plastic new build in British Columbia. The people living in Fairview have invested in their homes and community. There are neighborhood gardens, street corners tended to for years by tenants, and a vibrancy that only a community living in and caring for a place bring to a neighborhood. By displacing these people and destroying their homes, you destroy what makes a neighborhood unique and desirable to live in. This is not only about my specific unit and this specific rezoning proposal, but about the entire approach surrounding mass sledgehammer planning like the Broadway plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Eden. Appreciate your comments. Thanks for coming in person tonight. Clerk, do we have any additional speakers? No, that's the end of our registered speakers. Do we have any additional speakers on the line right now?
We do have some speakers on the line, but we need the break to be able to identify them.
Okay, I see we have one speaker in the chamber, so I'm going to suggest that we hear the speaker in person, and then we can assess. We need to do that. We can do that break. Okay.
Can I start?
Yep, go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and Council, for this opportunity to speak. My name's Stephen Boas. I live in Vancouver. I work in Fairview. I'm a cyclist, and I go by that site often, including today on my way to work and here to City Hall. I really agree with the sentiments of the last speaker. I'm a renter. I can identify being evicted, losing my housing, having to move on short notice. And I really think that the city needs a way of pausing the plan and really looking at the issues that the Broadway plan has done to renter protections and the protection of rental stock. Because this is exactly the kind of mature rental stock that we want to keep in the city. Just read Jane Jacobs' works. Everyone's saying that we have to keep our existing rental stock. It's ludicrous to tear it down and to build expensive new rental. The other issue that I will talk about in terms of the technical issue is that this actually doesn't follow the Broadway plan. There's a little bit of misinformation there. The Broadway plan clearly states that there is a maximum floor-to-floor height of 10 feet for residential stories. And here, of course, we have a 12-foot floor-to-floor height on the 20th story, which is a residential story. So this does not follow the Broadway plan. If you look at your referral report, you've got this like shadow study. Shadow study, it's in Appendix C, page 4 of 5. It's an incorrect shadow study. And I'm just really wondering how basic mistakes like this are being made, that staff are including incorrect information for the public and also incorrect information on a Q&A. Because I don't think people should be commenting on incorrect information. And I will make a note that the spring equinox last year was not on March 21st, but on March the 19th. So let's get the dates of the times as well for the shadow diagrams correct. When there are concerns, I actually do have a concern of putting incorrect shadow studies and asking feedback on that and issues with the drawings. And if you look at one of the renderings, you see the city backdrop isn't anywhere close to reality of downtown Vancouver. Just you can flip through them. There is a lot of taking away of light from Broadway and turning Broadway into a dark street, especially in the shoulder season and between the fall equinox and the spring equinox. This would be the fourth tower on the block, right? Because you already have 1268 West Broadway, 1258 West Broadway, and now you have the Denny site or 2538 Birch. The 4 towers on a site actually would have been not permitted on your original Broadway plan, but of course you've changed that recently by removing towers per block limits. But under the original plan, it actually said in section 9.9.2 that there would be a maximum of 2 towers per block, street to street, including any laneways on blocks with 2 or more existing towers constructed prior to the adoption of the Broadway plan. One additional tower will be considered. Well, of course, Denny site wasn't constructed prior to the passage of the Broadway plan, so this site actually wouldn't have been considered under the Broadway plan. So I don't even believe that the public consultation was valid. There's some misinformation. I should have really stated that this is not consistent with the Broadway plan when you went to public consultation. The bigger question I wanted to ask is this actually a rezoning to sell? So if I look at the floor plans, I don't see any details really inside of the units. There, I see a 10-foot floor-to-floor height on the ground floor, which that might work. But I'm just wondering if the purpose of the exercise is to get a rezoning, get a development permit, get a building permit, demolition permit, clear the site, and then just leave it and try to flip it to someone else. Because I'm just like concerned when I look at the drawings that this could be the end of it. And we see all the community gardens and dog parks come up all over the city, and to kick people out of their existing housing to make a dog park is, I think, not really a great use of our time. So I would urge this council to revisit the Broadway plan, pause the plan, look at the terrible costs to renters when you allowed wide-scale rezonings, not near the stations, not along Broadway and Granville and so on, but in the heart of the community in these RM zones, and really try to reverse these policies, because thousands and thousands of people are going to be displaced if you don't do anything about that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Right under time. Okay, so third and final call for speakers. The number, which may sound familiar by now, is 1-833-353-8610. The participant code is 10614450. And I'm not seeing any other speakers, so we will take a 5-minute recess now to allow that final opportunity, and we will reconvene at 8:30. Okay, council, we're going to reconvene, and I see we have people coming back on their video. Do we have quorum, clerks? We do? Okay, great. Okay, we do have another speaker on the line, so we'll go ahead with that person, and that is Maggie Gee. Maggie, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Okay, please
Can
go
you
ahead.
hear
You
me?
have 5 minutes to speak to council.
Yes, hi. Hi, Council. I'm just calling to express our strong opposition to this proposed tower. I lived in the area for 8 years. I'm a resident and a strata council member of 1268 West Broadway, which is across the lane from this proposed tower. And our building is 11 stories high. And so this new tower of 20-story will significantly impact, it will pretty much block all our sun exposure to our homes. We already have a tower on our east side and a double side height on the west side. So this additional high-rise on the south will just create a canyon effect, like trapping us in this like a shadow year-round, blocking sunlight, especially for the winter months. And so my 85-year-old mom, she sits by the window on the south side, in the winter. And then so this proposed 20-story tower is devastating news to her. So it has serious implications for livability for our building. And that's one concern is the complete loss of sunlight. The other one, the previous speakers mentioned about the fire safety is a concern. It's with the narrow lane. We already have 3 giant towers. Now we're adding another one right just across the lane. So this addition, I don't know, it's a concern about the emergency access, the egress, and increased strain on the fire services in our area, and also the traffic congestions and safety. So many cars will be going through this lane, already super busy lane. There's a 24-story of 30-story building under construction right now, which is a rental tower, and this is another 20-story tower right across the lane. And also a privacy issue. The tower so close. On our east side, this tower, we have the curtain pretty much closed all day, like just open half of the blind. Now we have to do the same on the south side. So I'm not against rental towers. I'm all for it. But it should be done. It should be considered. The existing residents have the right to sunlight, to safety, privacy, and livable homes. We are working 3 people full-time jobs to pay the mortgage for the home, and we chose to live in Fairwell. We moved from Toronto to chose to live in this neighborhood because we like the character of the neighborhood. Because we don't want to live in Toronto, we don't want to live in downtown. So this whole densification is kind of really destroying the character of the Fairview neighborhoods, which I agree from the previous speakers. And so this project, as proposed, it threatens to compromise all of the existing residents' rights. I asked the council members to consider the needs of the current residents and the character of the neighborhood when making your decisions. I don't know, the Broadway plan was approved, but I don't know it's approved. Was it voted by the local residents? For the other proposed tower, like if you live in the neighborhood, I lived here 8 years. If you live in the neighborhood, you walk in the neighborhood, you'll notice so many empty commercial spaces. It's already for lease. I don't know why we need to build like more concrete towers. The 10th Avenue is not. I'm all for building higher towers along Broadway, but not along the 10th or the other quieter streets where people actually walk. Nobody likes to walk along the Broadway in the shadows in the winter. Everyone walks on the 10th, and and bike along the 10th. Now you're putting how many towers in this one block? You're proposing another 2 towers, right? I already have 3 towers within this one block. So I don't know why we're pushing for such dense development in such a traditional, quiet neighborhood. I oppose to this proposal.
Thank you, Maggie,
Thank
for your
you.
comments. We appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much. Okay, any other speakers, clerks? Is that it?
No.
Okay. So seeing none, the speakers list is now closed, and seeing there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now closing receipt of public comments. Does the applicant team have any closing comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to address some of the concerns expressed by some of the speakers tonight. The first speaker expressed concern about unit sizes in these projects, and she referenced that some units might be 220 square feet. The City of Vancouver, I'm sure Council knows, the City of Vancouver zoning and development bylaw does not allow unit sizes below 320 square feet. And even that requires special relaxation. All of the units in our proposed building, the smallest unit is a bachelor at 440 square feet. The 2 bedrooms are 750 square feet, and the 3 bedrooms are 950 square feet, which just looking at some of my colleagues' other applications and other projects is quite a bit larger than other people are proposing. The first speaker also had concerns. I heard her also speak about concern about fire and the fire danger in the tower in London that burned down. I actually know that project quite well. It burned because they had a foam plastic cladding on the outside of the building. That type of cladding is not permitted in the City of Vancouver by the Vancouver building bylaw. All building materials must be of non-combustible nature, so the fire danger wouldn't be present in a project like this. The last speaker the speaker before, the last speaker in person spoke about the high ceiling on the top level. He's right, we do have higher ceilings on the top level. That's because that's our amenity room, and we wanted to give the residents there the amenity room at the top of the building with views of the city and give them a little bit higher ceilings in their amenity and party room. So we thought it was an appropriate response. And then finally, my client wanted me to also mention to council that they're working quite hard with the existing tenants to relocate them in some of their other buildings because they own a few other apartment buildings in the City of Vancouver. He was watching online and he was dismayed to hear the experience of the one tenant that spoke tonight. He has no communication with her, but he did authorize me to offer on behalf of. He would very much like to hear from her and work with her and try to give her some sort of help in finding a new place and some compensation. She must have, because of her tenure in the apartment, must not be eligible for the TRP. However, he would like to reach out and offer her some help.
Thank you very much for providing those responsive comments. Very much appreciated. Staff, do you have any closing comments?
No closing comments from staff.
Okay, thank you. And council, any final questions for staff at this time? None? Okay, clerk, any additional public comments since they were closed?
No.
Okay. Okay, council, this is the point where we now make a decision on the application. Up to council if you would like to move or second this report. Moved by Councillor Klassen,
I'll second.
seconded by Councillor Meisner. And council members, is there any discussion? Councillor Klassen, go ahead.
Thanks very much, Chair. We heard tonight 3 different projects in the Broadway plan area, and I think that there's a really important work ahead of us to try and make sure that we communicate what lies ahead here, because there has been, I think, a mischaracterization of what we're trying to do here. This is not something that is going to happen overnight. Indeed, it'll happen over the coming decades. The work around the tenant relocation policy is, I think, going to slow projects down for sure, because it's going to require that responsible that responsibility of making sure that people who are at risk of being displaced have places to not only go to, but come back at matching rents and at one-for-one units. But it's just very helpful sometimes for us to be able to hear from the applicants themselves. It's not always the case, but I would sort of say that it's very heartening because people do feel sometimes very emotional about the change that they foresee in this one, and so it's very helpful that we have this important dialogue, not only in the chamber here, but to have the applicants themselves come in here, being able and willing to address questions directly, and make sure that the information is clear. So I just want to acknowledge that because I think it is a very important part of what we're doing here to not only address what's being required of us by the provincial government in terms of transit-oriented development, but also build this into, continue to grow this into a very successful neighborhood. It's a neighborhood with a long history, but it has a fantastic history in front of it. And certainly creating new housing will create opportunities for more people to live and grow up, raise families in this neighborhood. And I think that's something that is really the goal at the end of the day, is to try and make sure that we adapt and embrace the future and to take advantage of this very, very large capital investment of having the Broadway subway line go through this neighborhood. A lot of people live and work in this community. It's the center of our healthcare sector in the province right now. A lot of health workers, nurses, people, clinicians, doctors, all live in this neighborhood because they want to live close to work. This will provide an opportunity to continue to allow that to happen, and also reduce the amount of reduced car usage overall, because we will have access to world-class rapid transit along Broadway. So again, I think I'm going to be supporting this project, but I just wanted to reflect a little bit about some of what I've heard today, and an earnest attempt to try and help us have a better understanding of what we're trying to do here. Nobody's trying to destroy this city. This is the city I was born and raised in, and nobody's going to take that away from me. I want to make sure that we build a very beautiful city, and I think projects like this can be a part of that. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Klassen. And seeing no one else on the queue, we'll now move to the vote. And reminder, everyone has their video enabled, which is great. And Clerk, so if you can take us to that, that'd be great.
Chair, it's Councillor Joe. Again, I need all assistance in favor, please. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Yes, Councillor Joe.
Thanks.
Okay, sorry, just checking my totals here. That passes with none in opposition. Okay, that concludes the 3 items on the docket tonight. You know what I'm looking for. Motion to adjourn by Councillor Klassen.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Meisner by a hair. Seeing none opposed, I'm assuming. We are concluded. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.